Hi, I'm Jake Park and I'm here at RTA Cabinet Store. This video is going to be on how to assemble a Lazy Susan base cabinet. A couple things you're going to need to make your life a little bit easier: box cutter, flathead screwdriver, and a cordless drill driver. You want to give yourself a nice work surface to work with and start opening up the product and laying out all the pieces. So I have all the pieces out of the box here. I just wanted to go over a couple of things with you. There's going to be two side pieces. They're going to be quite different from each other. One is going to have a dado right at the very back. The other is going to have a dado about 3 inches in. One other thing you'll notice is that the left side, if you're facing it, it's going to have an extra block here, nailing strip, whereas this side only has one. And the reason for that is because when we take our back panel, this side only has one. But this one has two. So what's going to happen is this is actually going to be opposite of this once the whole thing is assembled. And in this will receive the top tray that you're going to have to assemble yourself. So keeping in mind that you're going to have about 4 distinct different pieces. So this one will actually fit with the side that only has one nailing strip, whereas the back panel with one fits with the side with 2. They're basically opposites, and then they'll make a uniform set here. Another thing that you'll notice is that you're going to have a face frame that's going to be square, and you're also going to have one that's basically a C. And once everything is assembled, they're going to make an L that your doors are going to attach to. You also have a hardware pack, and in that hardware pack is going to be 2 of the large hinges that attaches the doors to the face frame, and you're also going to have 2 smaller hinges which kind of look like crosses, and they actually attach the doors to each other. Now, depending on what style cabinetry you have, this may already be done for you, so just keep that in mind, that this isn't always necessary depending on the style of cabinetry that you have. This is the Beaumont collection, so it is necessary to do this. And then you're going to have a bag with about 30-40 screws in it, and these will be used to screw the bottom floor in and the middle shelf in. And then we also have 2 pieces of toe kick, which will get joined on later on. And also throughout this video, we're actually going to be moving to the floor because it's going to be a little bit easier for us to navigate through this. So what I like to do is start with the sides and attach the side and back that'll eventually make up the box of the Lazy Susan. So what I have here is the left side if you're facing it, and I'm going to attach the back to it. And you just need a flathead screwdriver to do that. So once you have the left side and back piece assembled, this is what it's going to look like. There's just 2 cam locks here and here at the top. You'll notice that we have our nailer that goes across the bottom here and the bottom here. And as I was showing you earlier, the other side is going to mimic this, only this back panel is going to have the other nailer for the middle shelf to fit on. So we're going to go ahead and take the other side and put that together and start making our unit. Okay, so we have the left side and back and the right side and back assembled here. And I just want you to take notice that when you turn these, you'll notice that this and this one are going to line up once you have everything together, so that it fits the shelf for the top Lazy Susan unit. Another thing that I wanted to point out too is that I mentioned before that you have 2 different style face frames. And if you take a look at what will be the right side and back, you'll see that the back, it doesn't have a continuous nailing strip at the bottom. It's actually opened up a little bit. And the reason for that is because once you assemble this face frame onto this side and line it up, that actually is cut out because this has to fit in there. If it was going across there, this wouldn't actually work out properly. And you'll see that this is going to come together a little bit more nicely as we move on here. But I just wanted to point that out, that there's a reason why this is cut out like this. So the next thing I like to do is actually assemble the top Lazy Susan unit before I before I go any further here, just to show you how that goes together. Again, you may not have to do this depending on what style that you purchase from us, but for this one, you have to do that. So that's what we're going to work on next. All right, so what I have here is the top tray for the Lazy Susan, and then the shelf that it mounts to, and then the physical turntable itself. It may look challenging, but I assure you that it's actually not. One thing to keep in mind here is that you're actually only going to need 7 screws to make this happen. So if you have your screw pack handy, you'll start by placing the turntable onto the shelf, and you'll just want to make sure that it's pretty square on there. And you can even turn these to make sure that the 3 holes, the 3 large holes that are in here, actually line up to 3 large holes here. If you want to make certain that you have it exactly where you need to. But just keep in mind that this thing does turn, so even if it's not 100% square, it's really not going to throw things off too much. So what I like to do is turn this so that they're basically making a star, and then what that'll do is allow us to get this square on here, and then this turntable unit gets screwed in with 4 screws to the shelf. So what I'll do is take 4 screws and attach that, and then once we have that in place, I'll show you how to attach that to the turn tray itself. Okay, so I've taken and I've secured the metal turntable onto the shelf, and one thing I wanted to point out is that when you look at the back side of this now, when you turn the metal tray itself, you'll see that you can see through it here, and then if you keep turning, then all of a sudden 3 smaller holes appear. And what they're for is you're going to actually end up flipping this upside down, and you're going to flip this upside down, and you notice that this has a square wooden piece attached to it, which actually is about the same size as this. And so what you'll do is you'll put this on there and make sure that it's fairly square on there. Again, you don't have to go crazy, but it should be fairly square. And then you're going to reach through there, taking your trusty cordless drill driver here, and attaching the turntable to the tray. Now, another thing to keep in mind is these panhead screws that we're using, there's different lengths. Make sure that you don't use one that you're going to drill through and have screws sticking up the bottom of the tray. That's not really going to be beneficial to you. So these ones are about, I'm going to say, just shy of a 1/2 inch in length, which is going to be more than sufficient for securing these in there. So we get these 3 screws in here, and we'll flip this back over. And this now is the top turntable for our Lazy Susan. Okay, so obviously you can see I moved to the ground here. Maybe you actually started working on the ground, but it's just going to make it a little bit easier now that you're down here to make it a little more accessible for you to work with. So the next thing I do once I have my 2 sides together is I take the full face frame here, the one that's a square, and I'm going to attach it. It's dadoed out on one side to receive the side panel here. So I'm going to take and attach it using the 2 cam locks that are already pre-installed. Alright, and then that fits into our side over here, and you'll see that it's got 3 pre-drilled holes that are countersunk in it, but you don't want to screw this face frame to this side until you have the floor in, because the floor is gonna, if you screw it into place now and then you go to put the floor in, the floor is cut out to fit around that face frame, and if you screw it into place and it's not exactly correct, then it's going to throw the alignment of your floor off. So I'm just going to lay loose there for now. The next thing I'm going to do is take this face frame and I'm going to attach it to this side panel. Again, dadoed out here to receive the side panel. 2 cam locks on on this one as well. Alright. So once you have that completed, you'll see that it has a bracket here to attach this piece of the face frame to this face frame. You're going to use 2 small screws to attach that. And then the floor actually will be what holds this face frame and this face frame together. You'll see that this doesn't have any way to connect it to this. But once you screw the floor in, that'll be where you want it to be. So what I do now, I don't screw this into place. The next thing that we're going to want to do is carefully fit the floor in. You're going to have to maneuver it into place carefully because it does take a little bit of finagling to get it in there. So we'll go ahead and get the floor out and place it in here, and then we'll start securing everything down. Alright, so I've taken and set the floor up here just for now to show you that it's cut out here where the face frames are going to go. It's also notched out here where I was explaining earlier where that face frame piece fits into. And then in the back, you'll see on the 45 that it also has a dado that's routed out here, and that is for specifically for the 36-inch Lazy Susans. They have an angled 3/16 back panel that fits down when you're done. It's the last thing that goes in, and that'll fit right into this groove here. If you're doing a 33-inch Lazy Susan, typically that's not going to have that angled back piece because the configuration is smaller to fit up in the 33-inch space versus a 36-inch space. So if yours doesn't have this, then don't be alarmed with that. It's just for the 36-inch Lazy Susans. So I'm going to go ahead and take and finagle this into place here. Okay, so as you can see, it's not something that you're just going to rip zip with. You just want to make sure that you keep in mind that the cam locks that are on the bottom are going to interfere a little bit. So you need to start with one side, work it in, and work your other side in. Again, keeping in mind that it's important that you don't screw these things together before you do that, because as you saw, you need to be able to maneuver both of those side pieces closer together and farther apart from each other. Alright, so the screws that you're going to use to secure the floor are about a 1-inch panhead screw. Again, in that hardware pack, there's several different styles of screws and sizes. So for the floor and for the securing the face frame to the side and for the top shelf, you're going to use these 1-inch panhead screws. I like to start in the back because it's easy to make sure that everything's square. Make sure that the side is touching in the back here to the floor. There's already a pre-drilled hole. And then we're just going to continue to do the same thing around the perimeter of the floor here. And you'll see all the spots where there's a countersunk or pre-drilled hole. You just want to make sure that you use all those spots to secure the floor into place. So we're going to go ahead and do that, and then we will work on putting the face frame so that it's secured to the side panel here, and then we'll secure the 2 face frames together, and we'll put our shelf in here. Alright, so I have the floor all attached in place here. I just wanted to point out that there are screws at the front that connect to the face frame itself, and you can access them by turning the bottom tray here a little bit. And again, you want to make sure that you secure those because, as I stated before, that's what keeps the bottoms of these face frames correctly lined up with each other. That's going to be important for when you install your doors. You don't want this to be moving around. So just make sure that you've filled all the screw holes that are already pre-drilled. So the next thing we're going to do is secure this face frame to the side here using the 3 pre-drilled holes. And this will kind of line itself up because of how you have your floor in here. It makes it so that it can't move. You just want to make sure that you do pull this up to the top of the face frame here. And you can see that ours is sagging a little bit here. So you just want to secure that into place, making sure that everything is square. And the 3 screws will be more than sufficient to hold this. And again, I'll use those inch panhead screws that I showed you earlier. Now the 2 screws that I'm going to use to secure this L bracket from one face frame to the other, they're about 5/8 of an inch long. They're a little bit smaller of a panhead, and you're going to want to make sure that they're not going to go through the face frame, which they aren't if you're using the correct screws. And you're not going to want to force this into place, because once you have this one attached here, this is going to line up on its own basically where it needs to go. Because if you try to move this one way or the other, you're going to kind of put a spring into it, and you don't want to do that because it's going to screw up the configuration of your door. So I'm going to take and secure this in here. Okay, the next thing you want to do is put the top tray in, and this is the one that we assembled earlier. And one thing I wanted to point out to you, and I probably should have earlier, is when you assemble this, you'll notice that the shelf actually has pre-drilled holes in it. You're going to want to make sure that those are up once you have everything completed on this. Now, if for some reason you have done yours upside down, no big deal. You're just going to go in those holes, take the tray off, flip the shelf around, and basically just secure it to the correct side. Once you've done that, then this is going to fit down in, and it's literally going to rest on those 2 nailing strips that we had before. You're going to take the exact same screws that you did earlier. I like to turn the tray so that you're provided with adequate workspace here. And then making sure that it's tight on the other side. Do the exact same things that you did over there. Alright, so once we've completed that, we're going to take our back panel, slide it down in these grooves here, and you're going to have your cross brace that goes across here. Again, if you have the 33-inch Lazy Susan, yours probably is not going to have this. So this may be an extra step in this video that is not going to be applicable to your 33-inch Lazy Susan. So we'll get those pieces and we'll go ahead and install those. Alright, so we have our back panel here. We are literally just going to slide this in place. And make sure it fits in the bottom dado there, little tunk. Then you're going to take your back brace and fit that into the cam locks here. Take your flathead screwdriver. Okay, so now that we have the back panel on, the back brace in, the next thing you're going to want to do is flip your entire unit over, because we need to install a toe kick. As you can see, no toe kick under here still. You could put it on earlier because it actually attaches to cam locks in the floor, and you'll see as we flip this over that there's cam locks in here. Now, on other styles, such as the Brandywine or Tuscany lines, you don't actually have to attach it to the floor. So you can put the toe kick on earlier. You don't have to, but you can. I generally put it on as one of the last things. So what we're going to do is flip this over, and then I'll show you the configuration of the toe kicks. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is put the toe kicks on. And you'll see that they are considerably different from each other. For one is longer than the other. And 2, one has a notch cut out in it, which is going to end up going around our face right here. Now, you have to actually put these together in an order. The first one is the longer one, which goes on this side. Secure that in place with the slide this one into place. And again, secure it with the cam locks. Okay. Now you're ready to flip it over, and that should complete your Lazy Susan aside from the doors. So we're going to go ahead and set our table back up, and we'll show you how to connect the doors to each other and ultimately connect the doors to the Lazy Susan unit itself. Alright, so I've taken our doors here, they're still in the bubble wrap. I'm going to take a box cutter here, and on the back side of the door, I'm going to carefully cut this bubble wrap off. And I'm going to keep the bubble wrap underneath just so that we don't scratch up our doors. I've also taken these hinges that I said look like a cross, right? And I've opened them up so that they stand on end like this. And you'll see in each door that they've been routed out, and what will happen is this will actually fit into that routed out part like so. So you want to get 8 of the smaller panhead screws. These are the coarse thread ones again. And we'll take our 2 doors, and you're going to want to take what will eventually be the outside. You're going to face them in on each other, and what that'll allow us to do is put these hinges in each of the routed out holes. And then we'll screw those down so that they're nice and tight in there. And then once we have that done, then we will install the larger hinges in these holes here. So we'll go ahead and start securing these down. And we'll take our other door and we will fit it in here so that these fit in there securely, just as they fit into here. Alright, so the next step is you're going to want to take these hinges, which are going to attach the door to the actual cabinet itself, and take your utility knife, your box cutter, and open them up. And you'll see they're a little funky, but also in there will be a screw pack. Now these are the screws that you're going to want to use to attach the hinge to the door, and again you're going to use 2 more of those screws to attach the hinge to the face frame itself. So one thing I always tell people is that rather than trying to open these up with your hand, it's pretty difficult to do. So what you want to do is actually put this into place so that the hinge itself, you screw it down, and then once you have it in place, then you'll see that it's actually really easy to open up here. The other thing to keep in mind is that when you do put it in here, that you're going to want the square portion here facing in, because if you face it out and screw it into place and try to open it, then you'll see that it's not the correct configuration. So you want to put this in here and then open up one of your screw packs, and then making sure that it is square on the cabinet door itself, and you can always take and measure from the inside of the door to here on both places, or the outside of the door to here on both places, just to make sure that it's exactly where it needs to go. Alright, so I attached this hinge before I open it. It makes it a little bit easier to line it up properly. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and open it, and you'll see that once we have our door on 90 here, how it'll be when it's installed and the hinge open, you'll see that these hinges will sit right on the face frame, and when you have the hinge in your hand there, you'll be able to tell that there's a little bit of a lip on here that rests right on the edge of the face frame. The only other thing that you need to keep in mind is that there's a magnet on the face frame, and you'll want to attach this metal piece on the back of the door that's going to be touching that magnet, and this just helps keep the door securely closed. So we'll go ahead and move the Lazy Susan in here and attach the door for you, and then we'll attach this to the magnet. Alright, so we've taken the Lazy Susan, you're set up here on our table. This next step for attaching the doors, probably going to want an extra set of hands. Makes it very difficult if you're working by yourself, unless you have something to prop the doors up on, because as you'll see here, when I attach the doors, you're going to want to make sure that they're lined up properly so that there's a little bit of a reveal of the face frame at the top and at the bottom. So I move this in here so you can see. You're going to want about a 1/4 inch at the top and a 1/4 inch at the bottom. So if you have an extra set of hands, it makes it really nice because one person can hold the door in place while the other person attaches the screws to secure it into place. Alright, so once we have our door installed where it needs to go, another thing to keep in mind is those hinges are actually adjustable. So if your door isn't exactly right and it doesn't line up to the cabinet next to it, you can adjust them up or down. The only other thing that we need to do is attach this metal piece, this metal plate, which will attach to this magnet. And again, your Lazy Susan may already have this piece attached to it. This one obviously doesn't. But they'll actually have it sort of marked on the door where this needs to go, so you can use that as a guideline. But I like to personally close the door, make a mark where this actually needs to fit on there, and then secure it into place. Alright, so we got our metal plate attached here. Now again, your Lazy Susan may already have that. If so, you can forget about this step. For any more assembly tips and tricks, please visit our website at rtacademystore.com or follow us on YouTube.